tweet up to your chat. I also have Armen here today. Armen works on the international customer success team here at WordStream. He has a passion for the latest trends in lead generation and uses this to help his clients drive growth through online marketing. If you have any questions for Armen during our webinar, please tweet him at AEV Insights. Okay, and if you have any additional questions during our session today, feel free to enter them into the chat box at the bottom of the screen. We'll be monitoring questions coming in and holding those for our Q&A at the end of the presentation. So before I hand things off, we'd just like to learn a little bit more about everyone on the line. So a quick poll question. 1 second. All right. So where are the gaps in your customer journey? Are they generating leads, capturing leads, retaining leads? Is there one big gap or a mix of a few small gaps? Let us know. All right, so looks like most of you see gaps in generating leads, 35% of you in capturing leads, and a quarter of you in retaining leads. So pretty interesting mix here. Thank you for taking time to complete that. And Armen, I think I'll hand things off to you to get us started.
Yeah, very well. Let's see, get the screen back up here. Perfect. So welcome everyone to the webinar. I myself am pretty excited about getting started here at Sebalis. We've had some time to put this together, and I think that today's webinar is going to be very useful for everyone who's made it out, so good on you for doing that. A lot of good information, and basically what I'll cover from WordStream side, more or less, talking about the search marketing side, so looking at that statistic that we just took based on your poll questions, I think some of the beginning stuff in this webinar is going to be very useful for a lot of you, in terms of capturing those leads and not just capturing them, but getting the right kind of traffic to help you in that process. And so I'll take over from there, go into search marketing. I don't know if he wants to do a quick intro as well before his part comes up, but feel free to jump in. Other than that, I think we have a great team here. So consumer buying cycles, the first thing we want to start off with, only because we have to understand the psychology of search, the psychology of someone's needs, really the psychology of human behavior, if you want to take it really down to the core. And that can be summed up in terms of the marketing side, the materialism side as a buying cycle. We call these steps to conversion. So let's see what we got here. Yep, there we go. So, to make it more simple, we kind of went about just kind of creating a couple steps that you can easily remember, and we call these phases. So phase one would be something more or less of awareness. And as I talk, what I think would be the best thing is for everybody to kind of consider how they make their decision points. How do you go about your journey? How do you start your search for something that you need? And I think you'll realize that more or less it begins with awareness. It might be something in the back of your mind. It might be something that comes up out of nowhere. But typically what it has to do with something that triggers something within you to make an action in your life. You need something or you want to change something. And it can be a number of different things. I think the number one takeaway from awareness is that most people are looking to either resolve some kind of stress, some concern. They're catching up with to-dos, whether it's some kind of New Year's resolution or whatever it is. It can be very different for many different people. And then it can also be a spur of the moment circumstance. So something can come into your life or something can leave your life, and now you're forced to make a decision, and you've come to the awareness that you need to do something. Phase two is something that we could call consideration. And this is the step where we begin to consider our options. We begin to explore the world about us. Now that awareness has come, what do we do with what we've just realized? It usually begins with you starting to ask your friends and family. And as I say this, you're probably identifying those times in your life when you call that one person and said, hey, you know a lot about this. What do I do from here? What do you think is the best computer to buy? We typically go to these kind of first source people. We're definitely going to go with the organic route. That's typically where we begin. But very few people just take someone's word for it. And so that search begins to develop into something a little bit more complex. And the reason I kind of mapped that out is because we're talking about getting people to your website, talking about traffic. We have to understand why they're coming to you, where they're coming from to you. And that typically is a lot of action happening in phase two which should be that consideration. So we're searching on Google, in this case, Boston used car dealers. We want to buy a car, and you're driving the car with some of your friends, and they're like, "This car's awesome," and that's going to impact, how you're going to perceive stuff around you. Some of the takeaways from here is that, again, where are we going to go in this kind of phase two consideration? Probably going to go to the blogs. We're going to go to the forums. We're going to talk to our circles, professional networks, personal networks, and we're probably going to end up on Google or Bing or some other form of search online. So we'll start doing that first kind of preliminary background checking into what we're looking for, trying to solve the problem that we found in awareness, which is phase one. As we move forward, you might kind of now begin to identify that as you do your considerations, you begin to develop a short list, more or less a deeper review, things that we kind of keep in the back of our mind. We'll probably jump through a lot of different websites, different forums, a lot of pieces of information, but only a few that will remain. And that's, I think, typical for most people, is that we're just not looking to contain the entire library of information about this new need in our life. We're just looking to solve the problem. And so phase three, we're kind of building a short list, or the client is in that process of building a short list. And this is where they typically will probably come back to you, or they probably visited your website one time, then they're like, go back to doing their thing. They're probably busy, got bills to pay, and then they sit down and they're looking again, and this is when they come back to you. So phase three is very important. You want to end up in this kind of place for your client base, your target market. You want to kind of reach this destination with them. You want to be in that short list. And again, how people get to that short list can be very dependent on branding, on marketing, a lot of different things that could, pull somebody in, what their mother-in-law said about whatever they're looking for. So all that can impact it. So don't, kill yourself if you don't get to this always. It's very difficult to convert in general. So we're always fighting an uphill battle. And I like to flip that funnel around. I know that Noel here at WordStream also, in the marketing guru, likes to do that. So we like to flip that funnel upside down and go up the hill, not down the hill. In this case, it's a mountain for us, not a funnel. And so if we take that approach and understanding that it's very difficult, we kind of work towards that, and we kind of really get happy with every gain that we can make and every little piece of information that helps us get there. And so phase three, here we go. We're talking about where that client ends up once they've done their preliminary considerations, they've kind of done their reviews, and now they're on their short list. A couple takeaways here is that once they get here, once the client gets here, they're more or less kind of wanting to make that decision already. Depending on how long they've been looking, what that cycle will take them. If we're buying a car, probably like 30 days or so. If I'm trying to buy a gift for somebody, I have to buy before a certain time, so that might be a little bit quicker. But once I get to that point, I want to make action. I want to kind of finish it up. So I want to save time, move to decisions, do quick comparisons between my short list, and get rid of all that extra noise that I was kind of going through in the beginning. And that brings us to that final step, and to kind of simplify that phase four, action or conversion. And that's when we buy that car, that either our friend suggested or based on all the other information we looked at and the people we engaged during our search, we've decided to buy. And this is where, you win. This is where your conversion comes in. This is where your offer, your service becomes something that somebody's going to make action on. So phase four, basically finishing that consumer buying cycle. And as we look at these 4 steps, I want everybody to just kind of consider where they expect their target markets to be in these phases, how that phase goes for those target markets, because this helps us understand, again, where someone's coming from and where they're about to go, and how we can convert them much easier. How can we, speak to the psychology of their search? How can we kind of analyze all those moving pieces in their life and offer them what they're looking for? And usually somebody's going to convert or take action on your offer, once they kind of trust your, your reputation, they trust your branding, they trust your service. They don't think you're going to screw them over. You have the best offer out there probably, and they feel good about the decision. They feel good that this is the right decision for them. As you make purchases, also consider what you go through, that emotional cycle within you, that as you make that, $30,000 car purchase, you don't want to have a weird feeling inside you, right? You don't want to have that kind of second guessing. You want to feel really good about that decision. And so that's usually when someone makes that purchase. And that's the same for, your clients, your potential clients. They want to feel just as good about that decision that they went with you, and that usually was wrapped up by your brand building, your reputation building, and everything like that. So these kind of steps here allow us to look at that big picture and kind of work off of that to develop and build a strategy moving forward. And really kind of where I come in, I'd say the search marketing side, this is where we begin to get creative and maximize that information and really learn to use that information to build a really strong search marketing strategy. So I kind of put in a blurb here, the CROW flow, or the conversion rate optimization flow. Really is about how to get the right audience for your offer, right? This is, you might have a really great offer, but if you got the wrong person looking at it, your great offer is not as effective for that person. So we want to line up our offers with the people that matter most to that offer, and also at the right time, you know, considering every other piece that's moving in that person's life. All right, so, you know, personally, I could go off for a very long time telling everybody all the great secrets and things about search marketing and how you can build your campaigns and which way you should go about it. I try to simplify it a little bit because, you know, I think the purpose here is not so much to talk about search marketing, but really talk about chat and how chat can really boost your ratings, boost your conversions, and do a lot of great things for you. And so I kind of went over some of the basics, some of the things that I really recommend that if you're going to go in that search route, you know, you're going to do search marketing, definitely consider these pieces of the puzzle if you haven't already. So first thing is optimize your settings. You know, very important understanding basically where we're beginning. And to give you the quick takeaways from optimizing your settings, what I really mean by that is, you know, I personally think that if you're starting off, you're trying to build a good, you know, sound strategy, start with city and states. So I kind of mark that as consolidate your budget, because if you're targeting nationally, you're going to be ripped apart. Your budget is going to be really kind of stretched. And so consider like what locations, probably, you know, what areas are really optimum for your business. Try to get success in those areas. And, you know, if you have an unlimited budget, that's great. You can skip right over that, target the world, and go for it. But if we're talking about trying to do the best here with what we have, and we're trying to optimize those settings, then really target the cities, target the states. Also, think about ad scheduling. Think about like what times are the best times for you to be having your ads appear, which is, I think, is also often overlooked, only because we assume that our offer is always relevant. But as you think about that cycle, that search buying cycle, if somebody's going to be appearing when it matters more than when you're appearing, that person might steal that conversion from you. So definitely consider those things. And also bid modifiers to maximize exposure. So bid modifiers are a little bit more advanced in the search marketing field, but I'll give you that as a teaser so you can go research into that. And you can use bid modifiers to really maximize your exposure for different times and places in the country, and focus your energy and money to where it matters more. And that really comes down to, in this case, settings when you make your preliminary campaign. The next step really is keyword strategy. So, you know, as I write here, keywords are, you know, most critical aspect of any search marketing campaign. Keywords are the frontline troops in your campaign. They're going to be the ones that are engaging the audience. And you really need to get a really solid, logical strategy for your keywords. And that comes down to research, comes down to a lot of different points. I did give a couple bullet points here. I highly recommend that you guys download or get access to, you know, the presentation, so you can go over and read it again and kind of really, I think, focus on the information that's kind of contained in a lot of that I'm left here. Now, the image is more or less kind of showing the variance and how people could be and how anything can be really. I think that more or less speaks to the diversity of what we're working with here, that human psychology and emotions and everything like that. And how people type into Google is pretty crazy. So I've seen a lot of crazy things out there, a lot of crazy search queries coming in. You're just wondering, like, are people really looking for this? Like, how is this even, you know, happening? But that's what we're working with. This is the world we live in, and so we have to use that information to make the best edge for ourselves. So a couple quick bullet points. Begin with modified broad match types. And I'm giving you guys really the cutting edge, like just do this and you're going to be fine until you develop a better strategy. But this is where you want to just begin with. Begin with the modified broad match types. They're going to kind of keep your relevancy decent, but expose you to a lot of interesting queries. Avoid the generic keywords. So try to be as, as exact, I should say, as you could. Avoid kind of things that are just kind of hanging out there, not really clear about what you're trying to attract to yourself. And definitely research keywords. You know, use the keyword planner from Google AdWords as a starting point. There's like 20 other, key research keyword tools I can throw at you, but I want to keep it simple. So the keyword planner is a great place to start. Look for those money keywords, and that's really going to come up with search queries. As you do marketing, you're going to get query results coming back into your reports, and that's really what people were typing into Google to find your ad. And so use that to find those money keywords, find those really good queries, and then begin to bid on those. So that's kind of like after you've already begun advertising, and then set preliminary negative keywords. And negative keywords, we're saying preliminary because you should have a starter pack of negative keywords. Every industry has a set of keywords that just don't apply to them. Put those into the account right away, and then add as necessary. The third kind of quick takeaway for search marketing, and probably the most interesting, this is really where you make your bang for your buck, and that's really identifying the unique opportunities. You have to understand that as you advertise, the world is a moving place. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of different hooks and cranes that move things and move people and move business and move money and everything else. And so you're in that environment also advertising. You have to consider every impact that could happen to trends, that could happen to your locality, that could happen to the times people search. Basically, there's a wide diversity of things out there that could impact your marketing. And so we identify these unique opportunities. And a very simple example is, Elvis in concert. Let's say that, the king is back and there's a concert happening. That's going to move search queries. That's going to move the way people are going to be engaging on those certain, that month leading up to that concert, that week leading up to that concert. People's, search habits are going to start changing. It might hit a news cycle. Elvis is back. It's kind of a silly example, but think about how many times there's breaking news, there's trends happening around you. People begin to search for these specific things, and this is a great opportunity to potentially capture that audience. And so some unique opportunity examples, location-based searches. So are people looking for, let's say for that, I can give you a really basic example. Say you're a car transport industry. You ship cars from one place to the next. If somebody's searching for ship car from California to Massachusetts, that's a great search query for you. You should probably target that specific search because that's a really long route. That's a really good lead for you, instead of just targeting car shipping, right? So car shipping, generic keyword, targeting something like ship your car from California to Massachusetts is really like where you're going to make the most out of that. And so that's kind of a location based. And then events and breaking news, things happening around you. Trends, slang terms, niche lifestyles. You really have to get into your target market, understand your target market, target them the way that they speak, the way that they live their lives, so that you can really make the most effect out of your advertising. And really think about the realistic needs. You got to get creative. I've got a lot of examples. If you want to get more examples of unique opportunities, definitely Twitter me or whatever, or write an email. But I can definitely give you some more examples of that and how you would use those unique opportunities to target beyond the generic stuff, beyond what every other advertiser out there will have, and having something a lot more unique and effective. And a couple, or I should say kind of one tool that I want to point out for you guys, just so I didn't leave you hanging, and that's identifying unique opportunities in Google Trends. Using Google Trends, you can basically look up how people are searching and do a cross comparison over time on different searches. In this case, I'm doing Super Bowl and Patriots, looking at what times people were interested in the Super Bowl and the Patriots. You can see Patriots are greater than the Super Bowl in this case, and so they're always kind of in high demand. And then the Super Bowl begins to increase in interest as it gets closer to the Super Bowl. This tool is really kind of fun. You can imagine how many different searches you can do to find out how people are searching for what you're offering. And so go to Google Trends, explore it. A couple other cool things I found as I was looking at the Super Bowl. Google kind of breaks the information down for you a little bit more depending on the field you're looking for, but you'll see most searched by state. In this case, Denver Broncos are being searched a lot more than the Carolina Panthers, and also some top trending questions and queries that come up when we're talking about, let's say, these two football teams. So as a search marketing person, as somebody who's going to be advertising to get those leads to your website to convert, you can use a lot of this information to get creative. Again, so look at this information, consider the information, obviously not the Super Bowl, but what your industry is all about, and begin to use that information better than your advertisers, better than your competition, I should say, right? So that's what you're always going up against, your competition. And so you can do better, you can use this information to do better, and I definitely encourage you guys to go out there, get creative, start kind of looking between the lines and find those unique opportunities all around you. With that said, I had a great opportunity to work with one of my clients here at WordStream, and it's Roland from Canada. They do downsizing and extreme cleaning services. Definitely thank you, Roland, for giving me the opportunity. I'll give you a quick shout out. What we did was, as we linked up with PureChat here and we started talking about PureChat, I was pretty excited about it, and I definitely wanted to give it a go. So I never like to have a webinar where I'm just talking about some points given to me. I like to explore those things myself and make sure that what I'm telling people is true. So that's what we did here. Life transitions. Didn't have a chat. We went ahead and basically integrated the chat into the website. And I can tell you with full certainty, basically it was a very quick setup. We're very pleased generally with that process as being people who didn't know anything about PureChat, but jumped on board. In this case, it was a WordPress website. We just downloaded the plugin and it was 100% compatible. It took about 10 minutes to get chat fully functional on our website. So we thought that was really neat. I think that's a really big win to a lot of advertisers kind of concerned about how that process typically goes. Right now, I want to hand over the ball before I go further to Sebalis to kind of jump in here and say a couple words, and then I'll jump back to what we found when we installed the chat box. So Sebalis, if you want to jump into branding and talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. And hi, everyone. One of the things that Armen mentioned was once that they installed the chat box, that they customized it to their liking and made it compatible 100% with the existing website. And that's one thing that you want to be sure of too. Whether it's live chat or whether it's a lead form or any other tool that you want to help out your conversion efforts. You always want to make sure that it matches up with your website. Somebody who goes to your website who's potentially looking to buy the product, they should know that you're there, but at the same time, they shouldn't be distracted from what they're looking for, by other things that are on your site that have nothing to do with your product. So you always want to make sure that these tools are helping and not necessarily hurting your conversion rates. I've been on plenty of websites where you go to the homepage and you're really not quite sure what's going on because there's something else that's just distracting, and you end up really not being able to find where you need to go. And sometimes if you confuse your consensus is, what, I'm just going to look somewhere else. So like the statistics that is on the slide right now, the color increases brand recognition by up to 80%. Your branding is important, and you want to make sure that everything matches up with that, and that there is no distractions, from that in order to not hurt your conversion efforts.
Awesome. Okay, you're just making a slide transition. Thank you, Sebalis. Definitely jump in anytime. I'd love to just kind of go back and forth if you hear anything interesting. You want to kind of add in some additional insight and thought as people are listening here. But that's super important. And as we tie that in, and keep that in mind, the whole branding thing there, because that is going to become super important on your landing pages. What we did with the client here, so just showing you some examples here. If we took part of the services that they did offer, hoarding cleaning, we went about, and I thought, okay, so how can I, from a search marketing perspective, and Sebalis will touch more upon, once the chat's there and that process is done, and you got the client. But I was thinking, can I use chat to attract the client? Can I use the chat before they get to the website? And just to show some creative ways that you can do that, you definitely can. If we're targeting people through Google AdWords or Bing, we can set up site links and calls, and that's the direction that we took. As you can see here, we put up the live chat site link, so it would come up under the ad. I figured that it would be very interesting to have that there to see if that would have some kind of psychological impact on people as they click into the ad, into the website. Would that kind of spur people to feel more comfortable, perhaps? And that's something that we can evaluate with a click-through rate. So it's important to understand that we didn't have too much time. We had about 2 weeks in, so we have these kind of quick data points to work off of. But all the preliminary sightings that we looked at, and it's pretty exciting, is that we saw a strong click-through rate and we saw a strong conversion rate in terms of what we were doing before that. And so you always want to compare yourself to where you were before as you build up and keep increasing your statistics and increasing your general flow. So based on what we were able to collect, live chat, the site link with live chat had the second best conversion click-through rate and the second best conversion rate. So as I've said, which was very kind of interesting to see, and I was actually very excited to see that because I think that actually does speak to what is going on. I think that actually does speak to the fact that chat provides almost kind of a psychological barrier to you or the client and you, and it allows them to feel more comfortable going onto your page and maybe engaging with you without giving you too much of their information. And part of that, as I say that, part of that to consider is that the Contact Us site link underperformed the live chat site link. And so just using some basic preliminary search marketing data that we have here, people weren't as excited to click a Contact Us link because they figured probably another form, probably another, collecting of information from me so then they can bombard me with, spam emails or whatever it is, whatever the general idea is, right, as a person surfing the internet. And so live chat, I think, definitely beats that. I think live chat provides that venue for people to feel a lot more comfortable with you. And based on what we saw, that definitely was something that we were able to prove from a search marketing perspective from the data that we collected. Beyond that, I was very excited to break down what the chats were, break down basically what the nature of the chats were, and consider that information as well. And so, we're not just kind of using chat to get conversion, we're not just using chat to get clicks on our ad, but we're using chat to understand the psychology of our target market as well. And so, quick breakdown of every question that was asked via chat. And Roland, this is probably a good slide for you as well, because this is going to be specific to your business. But really, as you use chat, and especially Pure Chat, and the way that they have their back-end dashboard, makes it super easy to get this information. You can see that questions related to cost and estimates, people trying to get a price point before they went further in the conversation, questions about additional services, gaps that perhaps weren't covered in the text on the landing page. Service area was another huge one, right? So where do you actually cover? Will you actually go this way? Do you actually have somebody here? Some basic questions that people don't want to wait a day to get an answer from, because these are very quick fire questions. They don't want to submit a form. I think this is just the basic reality that we're in right now. People want those quick answers. A couple of interesting things that came up also, job search. People were asking if there's positions in the company. So, hey, if you're hiring at your business, you might get something through the chat. Probably not the best way to hire someone, but it's still very interesting to see kind of how people perceive your business. So the big takeaway, and that's right in the middle there in the bold, is that in under 2 weeks of use, we received over 18 chats with multiple conversions directly from chat. And because this is still a work in progress, because we were still testing as this was being built, and that sale process is still in place. We don't know the exact number, but we can definitely verify that more than one conversion has taken place, and probably more. So we're talking about over a chat a day of like a live body, right? Somebody there kind of engaging your business just via chat. Let's ignore the phone calls and everything else you're getting from your advertising. I think that's pretty good. I mean, to be honest, I think that's really good. So that was very exciting to see as well. Beyond the fact that we were able to increase our search marketing metrics, increase our performance in search marketing, we were also able to verify that on the back end, at least in what we were doing, was working in terms of getting people to come in, keeping the client busy, keeping business flowing in. And so, the one question that I had when I considered all this information, that's way on the bottom, and I think that's something that you would consider for yourself as well. What would these visitors do if there was no chat feature? And I can't give you a straight answer. I feel like they would go on to the next guy in most cases. And how many people are going on to the next guy right now for you? And that's basically kind of where this is leading. So the fact that we were able to capture that experience and that conversation with the client, I think is a testament to the chat feature on the website. And from a search marketing perspective, I don't work for Pure Chat, but from my perspective, I definitely saw the power of it. That's why I was very excited about this webinar, to show you guys this information and to see you guys actually make some action for your businesses and see what you can pull from it. And I'd love to hear the cases of what your experience was like. Also, I'm sure Sebalis would be even more excited to hear those cases as well. But this is what we were able to pull from our kind of breakdown. Beyond that, Pure Chat offered some additional metrics for us, and I'm talking just from a user's perspective. So I'm talking from somebody who had just kind of engaged Pure Chat out of nowhere and started using it, what my experience was like. Also from a search marketing perspective, basically breaking down the traffic sources, that was very interesting. And so we were able to see where people were coming from, and just seeing that Yahoo and Bing and Google, they're all there basically presented, and we can kind of compare what kind of chats are coming from what network. And I think that type of information is also very critical and important for a lot of advertisers. Kind of one thing that I separated out, especially for this business, but I know that every business is going to have their specifics. Every industry is going to have their specifics. I was able to identify that 3 chats were about people asking on behalf of other people. So I think that type of information is something that you don't just kind of find just like that. And I think that being able to dig that out through the transcripts and seeing that it's actually working in this nature gave me that potential strategy. So we're talking about getting creative, right? Using information in front of you to get creative. And I thought, this kind of presents an opportunity for us to target either places like forums or informational portals or articles that somebody would be reading on behalf of somebody else or getting some more background information. So we're always targeting the person we think will make the decision point. Sometimes we should be targeting the person who can enable that decision to be made on behalf of that client that we're looking to get. So changing a little bit about how we look at our marketing, changing a little bit how we look at our target audience, and perhaps use that language on our website as well. So combining all this information. But these are just some of those interesting pieces that I was able to kind of dig up and present just from my case study, within WordStream, within one of our clients. And overall, we're very excited about the results and to continue really working down that line to build that strategy forward. Now, I'm going to hand it back to Sebalis, let him run from there and everything I've said so far, and give a lot of more perspective to that end. So, Sebalis, it's all yours.
Great, and just awesome job, Armen, and everybody. Armen is sick right now, so just sounding that amazing. Just, he loves small businesses, and that's definitely the type of people I like to talk to as well. Very educational and got a lot of great advice there. Something that, we'll even be looking at, being a small business ourselves. He touched upon a few of the, overall applications of, live chat in his example. Just from a high level, we look at, lead generation and conversion, as the 2 biggest value drivers in our business. A lot of people have heard of live chat being used, of course, as a support tool, which is still, very applicable in today's market and still a very good practice if you're looking to enhance your support team. But, with our emphasis on the lead gen and conversion piece, we've seen our clients, flourish in that channel, specifically in with when it comes to increasing sales. Our clients range from, the tech industry to, services to, beauty shops, etc. There's a lot of different types of personas under our umbrella, but they all still have that same overall purpose, to generate more leads, or, book more appointments, which entail, comes with more sales. So, we've seen chat work for them essentially by capturing, these people, on their website and being able to, really boost the number of customers that they have. Obviously Armen talked about how chat can, really help with ads, and obviously how effective advertising can help the business as a whole. So now we're going to look at, what really happens if the customer, came directly to the site or didn't necessarily pay attention, to the ad in general. So, of course, you want to understand your advertising efforts, your audience, to make sure that you have the right language out there. On top of that, you also want to understand your website. When a prospective customer sees you somewhere, or a friend mentions you or something and they go directly to your website, you want to make sure that you've identified any potential gaps, in your website. Is there enough information on the pricing page? Is there enough information on any other location of your website in which prospective customers are looking? Do you have some sort of call to action that's easy to find, or is it basically nowhere to be found, so that the next steps are really unclear for the customer, causing them to go to another website? How does your homepage look? How is that first impression when they get there? Is everything simple? Is it clear, or is it a little jumbled up and confusing? you want to make sure that you're testing. And I say that because, a lot of the top small businesses, do this, small to large businesses. 75% of the top 5 internet retailers do constant testing. The goal is to figure out what works best, or what's converting the best, and then you want to build from there. And, you'll have your days or your weeks or months, where you have an influx of customers, and then you'll probably have your, the same time periods where you have down periods. And, it happens in business, but you also want to know, when you're having that influx of customers, is there something working that you can capitalize on, wishing, that it would happen again, or really just trying to guess as to, what's going to drive influx again. So data is essentially your best friend. The more data you have, the better, and the better you can really hone in on, what's working, and also stop wasting your time on anything that's not working. Of course, at this point, you probably know very well who your target market is. If you don't, or if there's any doubt, I suggest you, stop whatever you're doing at the moment, go back and make sure to take the time to identify this first before doing any sort of advertising or focusing on any sort of conversion effort, because that's one of the basic building blocks in conversion, is knowing your target audience. So once you get to know your audience and you're interacting, you're beginning to get a sense of what is capturing their attention when it comes to advertising. So, what really leads them to believe that your company can solve their pain points. You're starting to crack that code. Now you really need to figure out, what's grabbing their attention on your website, and really translate over the best practices from your advertising efforts to your website. Capturing that data, first you need to figure out what are the most popular areas on your website. Google Analytics is going to be a great tool as well. It takes a little bit of time to learn and really get a sense of the metrics that you want to focus on. It's pretty simple though. Just there's a lot of information on the internet about it as far as how you need to set it and whatnot. But once you really get a real understanding of Google Analytics, you can see what areas of your website are customers visiting the most. Cross-reference that with the most frequent questions that you get. And if you're not keeping a record, or you don't have any sort of database that has questions from your customers, I highly suggest you keep one. The last company I worked at, we actually started doing that, and we didn't really think it was that big of a deal at first. And then as soon as we did, we just saw all of a sudden a really higher, a much higher probability to relate to the customer, being able to see the themes and really being able to hone in on those and tackle those proactively instead of trying to react to those trends. So figure out what the theme of those questions are, if any, or what the themes are. Do you know what page these questions are stemming from? So along with the customer themes, is there some sort of section from the website that your prospective customers are getting confused on? Do you keep getting a lot of questions about pricing? Are you getting a lot of questions about just for example's sake, what the warranty is or something like that? You want to use that data to your advantage, and then capitalize by fixing those problems on your website to increase those chances of conversion. So, and then before you start testing as well, you want to make sure that you're doing research, almost like you are before a science project. You want to formulate your hypothesis. What do you believe the results of your testing are going to be as you test those different strategies? You need to set goals. You want to make sure you know what you're aiming for, so that if you've been successful, or if you haven't, how close. What is it going to take in order to get to that level that you need to get to? Have you done any prior testing? You want to make sure that you're referencing anything that you've done before. Even from the advertising standpoint too. If you want to reference what you do with your ads to see what worked from there, like I mentioned already, in order to translate that over to your website. And then of course you can see if something went horribly wrong, so to stay away from that. And then on top of that, you also want to make sure that when you're testing everything, that you're testing literally everything from color schemes to placement of buttons, your navigation bar, whether you have 1 link, 2 links, 3 links, what the links are, your pricing page, you want to make sure that you're, grabbing every opportunity that is possible. So in using things to, help you with your conversion, as you're testing and as you're managing everything, you want to make sure that, while you're still you're collecting a lot of data, and you're going to be spending a lot of time on this, especially in the beginning, so that you can start really optimizing your site. You just want to make sure that your managing process is as simple as it can be. A lot of business owners are really pressed when it comes to time. An article on the Huffington Post, mentioned that most business owners actually cite not having enough time to get everything done is, one of the most difficult aspects of owning a small business. So being sure that you're managing everything efficiently is going to help you both in the short term and in the long term. And one of the things that you can do to help yourself is making sure that, you can do a lot of things, from your mobile device, from your smartphone, so that you're not stuck in one place, every time. And, basically the graphic on there highlights that. It just says, in the digital age, mobile apps are invaluable to small businesses looking to, basically tame costs and save times, because they help business owners conduct business from everywhere. So, you guys can read the rest of that, but essentially, the more places that you can do something and the more places that you can manage your efforts, the better, and the more time it's going to save you so that you can focus on other things as well. So when it comes to mobile, obviously you've heard and read and seen everywhere everything about mobile this, mobile that, everything's becoming mobile, and that trend is going to continue in the future, so, until the near future. So of course, you want to make sure that your business is friendly to this. We talked about having the mobile tools to manage everything. We talked about customers being looking at things on their mobile phone. So you want to make sure that your website is also mobile enabled. It seems like it's beating a dead horse by saying that, but at the same time, 66% of small business owners use a mobile device, but only a third of small businesses actually have their websites optimized, for these users. So you always want to make sure that, if somebody's on your website, everything's friendly to their device, and that it goes along with your website not looking jumbled and sending that customer to a competitor. So, and then when it comes to the time spent online as well, more time also ends up equating into more purchases, from those customers. So with an article on All Business, it actually cites that 46% of people making purchases on the internet actually prefer to use their mobile device. So that's a huge, huge opportunity right there. And if your site isn't mobily optimized, then that's something that you could potentially lose out on. And then, of course, one of the main topics of this webinar, conversion. Making sure that your website is conversion based. Right now, the average site conversion rates are between 1% and 3%. Right now, that's another huge area of opportunity. With companies paying so much attention to bringing in customers, but not necessarily on capitalizing on them. There's a lot of room there for growth, and a lot of room to really start honing in on reining in those customers that are already coming to you. So you look at brick and mortar stores. They like these stores pay lots of money for advertising, and then you have the customers coming into the store. Nobody talks to them, and then they leave. Well, same thing. If your site isn't friendly to do that, then those online customers are going to do exactly the same thing. So what you want to do, and what's going to help, number one, is simplicity. There's really no need for intricacies. Your company offering should be known immediately. If I go to your site, I should know exactly what kind of services that you provide. when it comes to the design, like we talked about branding before, your design can be, you can allow for, some elaboration in your design. That's fine, but you just, of course, don't want any distractions from, the main purpose. Another thing to do is make sure that your website is engaging. Communication. You want to make sure, once again, that everything is communicated clearly and that it's easy to navigate everywhere throughout the site. If a user goes there, if a customer goes there, are they compelled to interact? If they're looking for services that are related to your offerings, are they compelled to, send their information? Are they compelled to chat with you through your chat box, or are they compelled to keep looking? Are they going to want to ask a question, or are they, going to feel safe, with any sort of interaction? Which, of course, engagement is going to lead, to, a much higher probability of them converting. And then with this engagement, and with these elements, it just leads to a better experience. And even if that customer isn't looking to purchase, then, they're at the top of mind, and they're going to think of you when it comes time to purchase, or they're going to think of you if they're talking to somebody else who might be looking for the same type of service to solve a certain problem. And then next thing you know, both of them, end up coming back to you. And one thing that Armen mentioned was browsing for, basically users looking on, or excuse me, customers on your website looking for content, looking for educational pieces. One thing that's actually pretty simple that, still a lot of business websites are missing are testimonials of success. These things work wonders. So, there's the highest effectiveness rating in content marketing is at 89% for testimonials. So these are a lot more effective than even just, other educational pieces. People want to see, what others have said that have used your service or bought your product. 77% of people actually take the time to read product or service reviews before they make an online purchase. So that's going to be huge, once again as well. 90% of consumers admit that their buying decisions are actually influenced by online reviews. So just a few statistics there to really highlight the importance of making sure that you're also including testimonials to really boost your probability of converting those customers. I know my personal example, I'm the same way. I was recently looking for a knee brace, due to a recent injury, and the one I bought was more expensive than the other one I was looking at solely because all the user reviews were amazing. They were awesome testimonials. And so, you see somebody you can relate to who's having your same problem, and you say, oh, okay, their problem was solved, and they had, essentially the same thing going on. So that means my problem can most likely be solved as well. And then you're inclined to make that purchase. And so Armen is going to take over again and talk a little bit about remarketing and how that's going to add that extra piece to your efforts.
Yeah, really cool stuff, Sebalis. Definitely a lot of great information there. A lot of good statistics as well. Definitely love to hear that stuff, and love getting that stuff out there as well, just to kind of give people those thoughts as well, our advertisers, people listening right now. And thank you for mentioning that I'm sick. I didn't mention in the beginning, but I do apologize. My voice is a little bit not up to par, but we're trying to do our best here to get a little bit sick on a trip.
You sound awesome.
Thank you. But I appreciate that. And yeah, if you guys are still with us and you felt like this has been good information so far, I always like to wrap up with more or less remarketing. And what remarketing really is focused on is, just like that question asks, what if we lost our initial visitor? In this case, chat. What if that person came and left? We weren't able to grab them from the first engagement. There is a tool called remarketing. It's a process that we use within our search marketing campaigns within Google AdWords, which allows us to kind of go back to that person and re-advertise to them specifically. And kind of how that process goes, I'm talking about that mountain. As we climb up that mountain to get that lead, we're talking about that first level, like 100 visitors came, attract as many people as possible. In that middle, people filled out a form, a contact us form, a lead form, or something, a chat perhaps as a lead. And then we were able to kind of capture a number of those people to become our conversions. Now in that middle section is typically where people are going to drop off, a number of reasons. In some cases you can't bring them back. In some cases you can get them back. And so for whatever reason that person left, we click that person with a remarketing tag, put them into that remarketing funnel. And once we do that, got another slide there that kind of shows what that process looks like. Let me see here. I think my clicker, there we go. But what would it look like is that those lost leads would be brought into a specific marketing campaign in our search marketing campaigns where we only target those specific people who left our website. So we build very custom ads, we build a custom offer for them, and then we target those networks that we have at our disposal if we choose to, between Google.com or Bing.com, the search network, YouTube and display networks for on people's websites, and kind of just to speak on what me and Sebalis both mentioned, like if you're on that forum or if you're on that informational article, getting one of your ads up in one of those places potentially could be a really strong place to go after that person again, as they maybe visited your website from the business perspective, then went back to some of those more forum-based searches, and then they see you again. And that's typically how a lot of stuff does also come up. A lot of sales are also made from that cycle. And then we send those people back to the website. And so we capture them through that ad that goes back to them and bring them back. So not all is lost if you lost that initial engagement. And I'll also just kind of point that out to everyone listening, because you do have a chance to go after that person as many times as they're still in the mix, as long as they're still looking, as long as they're still searching online, you could potentially keep targeting them. And so that's something that I kind of throw out there just so you guys had that in mind. If you want to learn more about remarketing, definitely reach out to us, and we can have that conversation as well. But it's definitely a very strong strategy that is employed by, I would say, more advanced search marketing, probably professionals at this point. So, and really kind of, when we think about it, you can imagine that person coming back in that final engagement. I've done a lot of research. I think I'm finally ready to make a decision. I just have one final question. And I think as an advertiser, we all want to see that pop up on our website. We want to see that happen, where that person comes back finally. They're done with everything. They've crossed everything that they could. They jumped over every hurdle that was in front of them, and they're just presenting you with that final question: can you finally give me what I'm looking for? Can we make this work? And that's where I see that search plus chat is a recipe for conversions overall. I see that combination between these two elements to be super effective and powerful, and an exciting element for advertisers who are ready to go into that mix and engage their advertising efforts in this type of manner. And I'll kind of leave it back to Sebalis, just if you want to go through this final step here and just talk about the cycle and just how we would go through all these steps and repeat them, and I'll let you wrap up. Other than that, I'll be excited to hear you guys' questions. If you got any coming our way, answering them. But definitely encourage you guys to ask some questions. We'll have a little bit of time after the webinar that I can kind of directly speak to anything that I mentioned in Sebalis as well. And thank you to Becca and Noel for putting together the webinar as well. And I think that it's been a really good overall experience for at least us putting it together, and hopefully you guys listening. With that said, Sebalis, I'll let you put the final capstone to this whole presentation. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks, Armen. So just this last piece, wrapping up, we look at the optimization cycle. Begins with collecting data on your audience, collecting data on, the behavior, of this audience, collecting everything that you can, up front, using this data to optimize your search campaign, being sure that you're using the right keywords, advertising in the right markets, and ensuring that, everything is honed into, where your audience hangs out and what exactly they're looking for and the problems that they're trying to solve. Going from there to using those efforts to improve your landing pages, and your website, making sure to identify all of your gaps, making sure to, increase the chances of engagement, and also being sure to, optimize your site so that once customers get there, that they're going to stay there. They're more compelled to, interact, engage, and also, continue on, hopefully, to buying your product or your services. After improving that, being able to obviously improvement leads to, your conversion rate boosting, and after that, you really want to look at, okay, so what worked? Why did the conversion rate go up? Why are we converting more customers? What's causing more sales? Where are they coming from? Really taking a look at every single angle and taking that data and pumping it back into the strategy to try to get better and better each time, and then essentially just repeating and continually doing this over and over and over again in order to continue to grow your business in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sebalis and Armen. We really appreciate it. I think we have time for a few questions today. But before we jump into it, we're going to launch a quick poll. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can use WordStream software or Pure Chat software to manage your online campaigns, you can go ahead and put your votes in now and let us know if you're interested. And while this is going on, if you have any additional questions for Armen or Sebalis, you can go ahead and enter it into the chat box. I'll just leave this up for a few minutes while we gather your questions together. Okay. So one question for Armen in particular. Someone in the audience is having trouble identifying negative keywords. What suggestions can you offer for building negative keyword lists?
Okay. Definitely something that would take me to look at the account, definitely based on the industry and what the advertising effort is wrapped around. So that makes it a little bit difficult to give you some exact examples. I wish I definitely could give you some exact examples. I would probably come up with them off the top of my head. But negative keywords in general, keep in mind, we're trying to not only prevent bad wasteful clicks, but I'll give you a little more insight. We're trying to prevent bad impressions as well. So consider your negative keywords as a barrier against bad data and also against bad clicks, bad traffic. If we can limit our impressions to people that don't matter, we're going to get a better click-through rate because less people generally see it. If we can remain at the same click rate, our click-through rate would go up, and also just general statistics are going to rise, and quality scores are going to go up. That's kind of a more over-the-top explanation of negative keywords. There's definitely strategies wrapped around them, definitely specific to industry, and I would also recommend giving the WordStream software, if you haven't given a chance yet, to let that also explore negative keywords for you. One kind of quick capstone to help you identify negative keywords, definitely using the search terms report, and in our software at least, QueryStream report is probably the best tool I've seen in the industry to help you identify actual queries that have come in, and from those actual queries you can definitely easily identify bad keywords, and that makes your job a lot easier. So if you haven't given QueryStream at least a run, get the trial just to try that tool for your negative keyword game, and I think you'll see a lot of other positive effects. But thank you for the question.
Great, thanks so much, Armen. And we have one more question from the audience that we'll have time for both Armen and Sebalis. What are some tips on identifying your target audience when you sell a lot of products?
I can answer that if you want, Armen, or whatever's up to you.
Go.
Okay. If you're selling a lot of different products, I know it's time consuming, but one thing that you should do, if possible, is to have different categories for your products. If a certain amount fit in one category, or a certain amount fit in another category, and then really see what the target market is for each one, and that's going to help you have more of a high-level view, of the overall target audience. But you really need to dig, and actually one of an old friend of mine who's like a marketing genius, mentioned this to me as well. You think that because it takes a lot of time, it's not worth the hour spent, but it definitely is, to separate every client persona out by type and by category, and then from there you can really take these small details and move up from there and have a better understanding of your client base overall.
And I would just add on just a little piece to that as well, is that from a search marketing perspective, this comes up a lot. People are kind of stretched thin between everything that they offer, and my kind of little addition to what Sebalis just said is that If you're targeting in your marketing, definitely just focus on the most important foundational piece and let everything else build off of that. So really identify what the main priority is on your business. It's not going to be everything. It's very rare that I see that everything out there is the same value. So find the main kind of cash cows that you have in the business, focus on them first, build a good foundation on them, at least in the marketing efforts, and then allow yourself to kind of branch out from there. That way, the ship stays steady during the different cycles and the seasons. But that's for me. So.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks again, guys. So finally, feel free to shoot any more questions you have to our presenters on Twitter. Other than that, thanks for attending the webinar. A big thank you to Sebalis and the PeerChat team. We really appreciate it. And of course, a huge thank you to Armen for joining us from the WordStream team. All right, thanks again, everyone. We look forward to doing it again soon, and have a great rest of your week.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.